Energy. It's a leadership thing. Europe can lead or be led. It can innovate and prosper, or it can compromise and fail. This is the choice of our generation. 200 years ago, this riverside received ships and barges carried by the wind and the tide. Trade winds spurred ships across fierce and turbulent seas. The wind didn't stop, the tide didn't cease, but Europe's commercial needs shifted. Now this quayside is all but silent, a memoir to enterprise, a footnote to a chapter of ambition. How quickly the wind has shifted on climate policy. Carbon is no longer the singular holy grail of green activists. It's not about saving the planet, though we often pretend it is. It's about saving ourselves from poverty, from unemployment, from war and oppression. As Europe lays the foundations for a new energy union, the adrenaline rush to deeper action has come from the threat of conflict with Russia, not from rising temperatures and rising seas.
When you're reliant upon somebody who is quixotic, who behaves in such an unexpected manner, then you are at risk. And you cannot defend the safety and security of your people if you can't keep the lights on and keep the heating on.
Because of recent events, which in the end of the day are really a heating crisis, not an electricity crisis, we now have, as one of our key policies, specifically a strategy being developed for heating and cooling. So I think that's an illustration of how external circumstances call for a policy response.
As unfortunately often is the case in Europe, it sometimes takes a crisis for us to get moving. So it was the financial crisis which helped create the banking union. It's the Russian crisis which is helping us to create the energy union.
Today we have the patchwork of 28 member states when it comes to energy, and that creates problems, not solutions. Think about the fact that we are so dependent on the rest of the world, and not just the rest of the world, but Russia or the Middle East, to have our energy in place. We spend more than 400 billion a year in buying our energy out of the European Union. On top of that, we all know it's not sustainable.
Europe's strategic framework for a new energy union is based on the need for energy security as well as climate action. The engine driving both these priorities is the need for a stable economy. Without a stable economy, there is no national security.
What we need to think about in terms of the energy union is that it could be a grand Marshall Plan. If we really look at it as the way in which we can get Europe out of the recession, the way in which we can start to inject and leverage capital into Europe to give the right signal both to business and also to investors that actually Europe is serious about investing in a brand new both energy economy and also manufacturing industrial economy.
When you actually make massive programs on energy efficiency, it will create an awful lot of local jobs. And then you combine the fact that we need to meet our climate goals with the fact that we need jobs, that we need investments.
At its basis is to create a single market. So if we're interested in creating a single market for goods, which is mostly there, services, which is partially there, the digital economy, which is really lacking right now. Energy is another one of these pieces in the single market that we need to create. Because if we have a single European energy market, that means higher security and lower costs on consumers, easier to incorporate renewables, so better for the environment. It's a win-win-win situation.
A prosperous economy demands a reasonably stable environment. Ocean swell, pollution, water and food shortages all lead to conflict, undermining market stability. This hurts investment. It's impossible to separate climate action from the economy, and it is meaningless to talk about an energy union as a security issue without understanding what it is we are trying to secure.
What's the advantage, also in human rights terms, to get gas from Azerbaijan, Turkmenistan? Are we really hoping to get big gas from Iran and Iraq, with Turkey being a big transit country? Or do we go to where Europe is strong? We are strong in energy efficiency. We have developed the smartest cities. We have developed renewables.
We are creating a lot of electricity from traditional methods and from renewables. But if you can't transmit it, if you can't send it anywhere, then it just simply is lost electricity. It's an inefficient way of doing it.
I think the energy union is a pillar which will allow Europe to demonstrate that actually it can enable its at least 40% target that it's put forward.
If we increase our ambition and reach 40% energy efficiency saving by 2030, that is roughly the equivalent of the gas that European Union imports from Russia.
What we've got to try and do is find a common ground to allow flow of electricity so that you actually have a common grid in one sense, a bit like the common market. This would be a free trade area for electricity.
Why is this event important today?
I think it makes some of the examples of the energy union far more concrete. I mean, we can talk a lot about energy union and the discussion on how EU should develop, but most important is in the end also regional cooperation and really getting things off the ground. In the North Sea, there's a tremendous potential for wind offshore, of course, but what becomes very important is that all the different initiatives from the different countries, like the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Denmark, are connected. When they are connected, it's far cheaper and also better to distribute all the energy that's there.
If we can interlink the grids around the North Sea, the first thing we should be able to do is reduce the cost of electricity. So that will be for consumers, that will be for businesses, that's a great thing. Second thing, we should be able to share the electricity, so it can be created in one place, shared somewhere else.
Energy efficiency is a stealth weapon in our fight to ensure energy security, and it requires the mobilization of almost the entire European population. Putin can't stop energy efficiency, he can't switch it off, but better European energy efficiency can put a permanent stop to Russian gas imports.
The dependency that we have on Russian gas can almost be eliminated by 2030 if we put in place the right energy efficiency programs. And it's an easy fix.
The cheapest energy is the energy that you don't use, and also the cleanest energy is the energy that you don't use. But there is much more than that.
The relevance to the citizen is enormous because we're really talking about your house, your apartment, making sure that your house and your apartment is the nicest possible place to live in terms of temperature, but also the most cost effective.
This is the no-brainer, which is how do you create a more efficient Europe? The challenge, of course, is that creating the efficiency almost always costs some money. And at the moment, a lot of that money must be spent by governments. How do you retrofit existing public buildings? How do you encourage the private sector to retrofit existing buildings? And that's a serious challenge because it requires money.
We have still too many leaders in Europe who think that we will be good at gas geopolitics, oil geopolitics. Look, we are weak in military forces. We have no military who will go, unlike the US, defend the last drop of oil and gas. We are strong in technology, so the only good game changer for Europe is if we go away from geopolitics of energy into geotechnology. We are good in efficiency, in renewables, in smart grids. It's our economy which we can sell also to the whole planet, and the planet needs it.
To ensure energy security and a more effective energy market, cross-border connectivity is critical to reducing dependence on Russian gas. President Juncker's team wants governments and private equity groups to contribute cash to the investment plan. The aim is to spend primarily on infrastructure projects and to create jobs, but Juncker is struggling to convince private investors. Private investors want to see clearly defined projects with quantifiable returns. Some analysts argue that focusing on the energy union is all that is needed as an economic stimulus plan.
Your good idea could become a reality thanks to the nearly 80 billion euros available under Horizon 2020, the EU's 7-year research programme to bring innovative ideas to life.
I've gotten very frustrated with the Commission. You'll be aware of a fund called Horizon 2020 to fund this very topic, and they just cut it. And to my mind, that's the most vital fund the EU can invest in. That's investing in innovation, it's investing in the future, it's again potentially driving forward the whole energy technology debate. You don't cut that kind of money, that's stupid. You put more money into it. That's what the Commission should be doing right now.
Why did they cut it?
They wanted to move money around to create another fund of money, to create jobs and growth. My mind, right now, Horizon 2020 is jobs and growth wrapped up in a bundle.
You can't say yet, and I hope never, that Horizon 2020 will be cut. We're in the middle of the discussion.
I think there's a big fight looming between the European Parliament, who believes in research, in science, and the Juncker investment plan, which takes away money from exactly where we need money.
Well, remember, Parliament's position so far, and the EPP also, is we are saying that for the European Fund for Strategic Investments, the Horizon 2020 source is not the best source, and we're now in the process of looking for a better source of funds so that we wouldn't cut these. But regardless, remember that Horizon 2020 has a sizable increase in funding for basic research, which also would go into basic research in the energy sector. So I think on the whole, Europe has allocated more funds to basic research.
Doesn't make any sense at all to take the money from Horizon 2020, for instance, because what we need in Europe is research and innovation, and making that innovation, to make sure that that innovation can go to the market.
There was some part of Horizon 2020 taken for the Juncker packages, that's for sure, but good value for money, because the leverage that we will get out of that amount of money is huge. Much more potentially than we would get out of just keeping it in Horizon 2020. If you want to tackle climate change, there are a number of tools and techniques that need to be brought to play. Perhaps the most important is the engagement of citizens in their minds and in their hearts, because in the end of the day, all the policies in the world will not deliver if people are not convinced of the necessity. I believe we will be able to even advance beyond the targets because we will be more innovative.
Today, Europe is confronted by a new conflict, and it must make a new quantum leap to a generation of energy technology which powers our homes, cars, schools and businesses before the tide changes.